So the poem that Eddie wanted to hear was a poem called Improvisation on Lines by Isaac the Blind. Isaac the Blind was a 13th century Provençal Kabbalist. So it begins with lines of his that I came across somewhere. And somehow they just struck me and we turned into this poem. The word bulbul here is it's actually a word in English dictionaries now, but it's a Persian nightingale. We have many of them in our backyard in Jerusalem. Improvisation on Lines by Isaac the Blind. Only by sucking, not by knowing, can the subtle essence be conveyed. Sap of the word and the world's flowing that raises the scent of the almond blossoming and yellows the bulbul and the olive's jade. Only by sucking, not by knowing. The grass and oxalis by the pines growing are luminous in us petal and blade, as sap of the word and the world's flowing, a flicker rising from embers glowing, light trapped in the tree's sweet braid of what it was sucking. Not by knowing is the amber honey of persimmon drawn in. An anemone piercing the clover persuades me. Sap of the word and the world is flowing across separation through wisdom's bestowing, and in that persuasion choices are made, but only by sucking, not by knowing, that sap of the word through the world is flowing.
There are a lot of traditional forms in this book, and the villanelle is one of the recurring forms, so is the ghazal.
Right.
And what does the villanelle do for you?
Yeah. Poetically, I come out of a more American experimental tradition. But over the years, I've always read extremely widely, both in the English tradition, Hebraic and Arabic also. And I've always just had a kind of very Catholic sense of what's possible in poetry. What I feel is that, all poetry, your poetry, really anybody's poetry, if it's real poetry, is responding to a given situation, and the situation is sort of dictating the form at some level. And experimental poetry that turns out to look like something we expected or we could predict in advance, to me, is not experimental.